I'll be the first person to admit it. I'm not your typical road cyclist. Firstly, I'm not in my 20s. I'm not even in my 30s or 40s. Plus, I'm big and heavy. In other words, fat. To put things into perspective, I'm probably twice the weight of micro-Colombian cyclist Nairo Quintana. But does that mean that I shouldn't ride a bike? Of course not. If anything, it's even more reason why I should ride one. Let's face it, I'm never going to win a bike race, so fretting over saving a gram here or a gram there to give me 0.3 of a second time gain is like worrying about, something really inconsequential. The reality is that I'm just a normal chap who enjoys riding his bike. I don't think there's a cyclist alive that wouldn't like to be slimmer and a bit faster up the climbs. And yes, losing a few kilos would certainly help with that, but this isn't really the big issue when it comes to being heavy. Obviously, being overweight has a massive implication on one's overall health. As weight and body size increases, so too does the risk of developing life-threatening conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure and certain cancers. Sadly, this is not a myth. It's not something out there just to scare us, it's a fact. If, like me, you are overweight, the single biggest favour you can do for yourself is reduce your risks by getting down to a healthier weight. Now, while cycling by itself has amazing health benefits, the one sure way to shedding a few kilos is to eat sensibly and healthily. Weight loss is actually 80% diet and only 20% exercise, so you can ride your bike until the cows come home, but if you don't watch what you eat as well, you won't really see any improvements. Now, this is where I personally have been going wrong, and why I'm also trying to change my eating habits. Cycling is great if you already eat fairly healthily and only need to lose a relatively small amount of weight. It can be the deciding factor that makes all the difference between being slightly overweight and being at a healthy weight. Now, although very closely associated with each other, health and fitness are not quite the same thing. As I see it, fitness is the ability to recover from exercise, injury and illness. So in theory, you can be suffering from an illness, i.e. be unhealthy, yet still be relatively fit. Now, this is where cycling really comes into its own, as it's an excellent way of raising one's level of fitness. Again, it can reduce the risk of heart disease, diabetes and some cancers, and in certain cases completely reverse the conditions. Being heavy does not necessarily mean that you're unfit or even unhealthy. To emphasize my point, here's a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger at the height of his bodybuilding days. Now, I'm guessing there isn't a person alive that would have been brave enough to call him unfit to his face. Aside from these obvious health issues, being heavy on the bike does make you slower, particularly on the climbs. This is because of the power to weight ratio. Basically, it takes a certain amount of energy or power to move a kilo of mass. Now, it doesn't take a Stephen Hawking's physics genius to work out that the more kilos you have, the more power you will need to move it, particularly if you want to maintain the same speed. Tipping that balance in favour of the weight side of the equation will result in more speed for the same amount of power. So how much speed will you actually gain? Well, I recently did a practical test, and the long and the short of it was that if you decrease your weight by say 10%, you will gain approximately 10% in speed. Finally, there is also the aesthetics. We all know that lycra is not the most flattering of fabrics. Even I think that I look like a sack of custard when I wear a cycling kit. But then you have to ask yourself, who are you riding for? It might not look stylish or particularly pleasant on the bike, but it is the most comfortable and practical thing to wear. In my experience, when other cyclists see riders that are overweight, they're overwhelmingly positive. I think they see someone who's trying to improve themselves rather than someone that has something to be embarrassed about. So if you're heavy, a bit older, or slower, or want to ride in a ballet dancer's tutu, don't ask. In fact, whatever you think is holding you back, my advice to you is to get out and enjoy riding that bike. So if you found this film useful, please like and share. And if you'd like to get the most out of your cycling, please consider subscribing for my regular weekly uploads. Thanks for watching.